They do. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. Juan Williams, columnist with The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Okay, Steve, where are we today? What about what Secretary Kerry is saying and doing over there, and is anything happening?
Well, it's hard to know exactly what he's saying and doing behind the scenes, but his public rhetoric sounds like the public rhetoric that people have used about North Korea. Diplomats from the United States have used about North Korea going back almost 2 decades now. It's the same exact thing we heard from the Bush administration, particularly in the second term, and it's consistent with what we've heard from the Obama administration. You know, this blustering rhetoric is unacceptable. If North Korea continues, or if they launch a missile, if they conduct another nuke test, it will mean that they're further isolated. I mean, if you're North Korea at this point, do you believe any of this? We haven't seen further isolation. We haven't seen any actions by the UN, by the United States, by China, by anybody that we've encouraged to take action. We haven't seen anything meaningful. So I don't think the North Koreans are likely to be swayed much by what John Kerry is saying in Seoul.
Now, there was scrambling going on about intelligence. It came after a Colorado congressman, a Republican, Doug Lamborn, read a question citing what he thought was unclassified information from the Defense Intelligence Agency. And he was asking a question. Take a listen to this in a response from the White House today.
Quoting from the unclassified portion, which I believe has not yet been made public, they say, quote, DIA assesses with moderate confidence the North currently has nuclear weapons capable of delivery by ballistic missiles. However, the reliability will be low.
Obviously, the North Koreans have tested nuclear weapons, and they have developed some missile technology. What they have not done is demonstrate a capacity to, a capability to deploy a nuclear-armed missile, attach a warhead to a missile and fire it.
There's all kinds of confusion whether that was supposed to be classified or not classified. The bottom line, Juan, is that it's new. Is that what he read there was that they had miniaturized and been able to put it on a warhead, and now all day today, from Kerry to the White House and all over the place, they were saying he hasn't been able to do it, to deploy it. Yeah. What about all that?
So I was curious about this, so I was asking questions around town today from people who would have reason to know, and the answer came back, well, it's not clear-cut, because in fact they believe, miniaturized it, they think they have this capability, but the reality is they don't know if the delivery system's in place. So if they launch it, it could be that it would explode right there on the launch pad. It could be they get it in the air and it would explode over their own territory. It could be that they would have fallout on their own territory and be embarrassed. And therefore you have to also calculate the risk for this young leader, Kim Jong-un, in terms of embarrassing himself and making himself look foolish, which would be a great sin given that they are so paranoid in the first place and so conscious about being viewed as less than serious. And that's why in talking to people today in Washington, most people say they don't think it's real. They don't think it's that he would do it. Does he have the capability, though, is a separate issue, and that they seem to agree it's likely.
I don't think that the first launch, that the problem with what could be what you were talking about, the first launch of a nuclear-tipped missile in the history of mankind, that the problem is embarrassment. I mean, this is hair-raising stuff. I think it was not supposed to have been made public. If you looked at the face of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs when that question was answered, it looked as if he wanted to be in Chicago at that moment. This was not expected. But what it tells you is how little we know. And in a way, kind of looking back to Iraq, where this administration and Democrats have been talking about the Bush administration lying about intelligence or tilting it or making it political. Look how this administration is now trying to undo any political implications of what was clearly a finding of the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Administration, that the Kim could actually have an atomic warhead on that missile. And the scary part is, Obama has been assuring the Israelis and the world, you don't have to worry about Iran, because even if it develops the enriched uranium, the matching it, the marrying it to a missile is a different step. We will know about it and we will preempt. And now they are saying that with North Korea. We may not even have any idea that they have done this, and we were assured for years that there wasn't anything of that sort. That means there's no way that we can trust our intelligence on how close Iran is today.
And that is the point that Richard Grinnell is making here. All the focus now is look at the shiny thing over here in North Korea, and Iran is continuing whatever it's doing.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I think Charles is exactly right that that's one of the biggest problems here right now. The Richard Grinnell comments were interesting. I mean, I think it's certainly true that Iran presents a greater threat, particularly over the long term. I don't think, though, that you can ignore or downplay the threat posed right now by North Korea, given the escalation in rhetoric, given what little we know about both the weapons and about Kim Jong-un himself. I mean, there's so much that we don't know. The South Koreans apparently used to think that they had a great window into the leadership, or at least had some visibility into what was taking place and how the decision-making process was unfolding. They don't even think that they have that anymore. So if we don't know this, if they don't know this, it's all such a gamble, and it's all so up to chance at this point that it makes it, I think, a highly combustible situation.
I will say that Jay Carney pushed back hard and said that the White House has not taken any focus off Iran today when pressed on that. We'll be talking a lot more about North Korea in days to come. Next up,